and welcome to another UK Gaming Network podcast. I'm Zoidberg, and this week I've been playing two of my favourite action games again, thanks to a fantastic 4K remaster courtesy of Sega. Bayonetta and Vanquish will both turn 10 years old this year, and together they made the name of Platinum Games, a studio set up by former members of Capcom's Clover team. Bayonetta came from Hideki Kamiya, whose previous games included Devil May Cry and Okami. It introduced us to one of the most charismatic heroines in all of gaming, and the action flows perfectly throughout. Vanquish, on the other hand, is an at times ludicrously fast cover shooter from Resident Evil 4 director Shinji Mikami, and it's one that makes Gears of War look positively dull by comparison. Both games require genuine skill to perfect, and are undeniably 5-star games. It's just a shame that they haven't been given the 5-star treatment in this latest re-release. Your experience with the remasters will be entirely based on which console you owned previously, and which console you own now. Both of these games are playable through backwards compatibility on Xbox One, and enhanced already, and these new versions are not that much different. However, the PS3 version of Bayonetta, in particular, was notorious for its long load times and frame rate issues, so it's nice that PlayStation owners can finally play the game as it was intended. Over the years, Platinum Games have had profitable and successful relationships with Sega, Square Enix, Nintendo and even Activision, producing some memorable and highly rated games. Microsoft's cancellation of Scalebound still hurts, but there are more than enough great games in their portfolio to cement their status as one of the world's best developers. Here's a look at some of the lesser known games from their back catalogue. Some of these you may have even played already. Mad World, 2009. The first game to carry the Platinum name was presented in stark black and white, with splashes of red blood in a style not dissimilar to Sin City. This cartoon style allowed for a sometimes astonishingly brutal game, and as a result it wasn't available for sale in Germany at all, and there were calls for it to be banned in the UK too. What's most surprising is that it was released on the Wii, which was thought of by most people as a family console. Ultimately, it's perhaps a little too stylish for its own good, and it can occasionally be difficult to see what's going on. The erratic in-game camera doesn't help either. Presenting the game as a violent TV show meant we had to put up with some woefully unfunny commentary throughout, but as long as you can tune that out, you're in for an entertaining few hours of gameplay. Anarchy Reigns, 2013. Platinum's initial deal with Sega was for 4 games, but after the success of Bayonetta and Vanquish, this was extended to a 5th. Anarchy Reigns was actually the follow-up to Mad World, and threw elements of open world into the mix, and also included online multiplayer that allowed up to 16 human players to do battle across all of the game's maps. You can't accuse this overblown actioner of lacking ideas, even if those ideas don't quite form a satisfying whole. But don't let that stop you from playing it. Elements of the developer's other work are present, particularly God Hand, and the fluid combat manages to raise itself above your standard button basher. They even added Bayonetta as one of the game's playable characters for the multiplayer. Chances of finding anyone to play against though are virtually nil these days, so fortunately you can just play against bots instead. The Wonderful 101, 2013. This memorable Wii U exclusive was recently the subject of a successful Kickstarter campaign, and will now be heading to modern consoles, allowing it to reach a whole new audience. That's great news, as anyone who played it will attest to its bonkers brilliance. It looks a little bit like Pikmin, as you control a superhero recruiting members of the public, who then proceed to follow you around through the levels. But the gameplay actually has more in common with previous Platinum titles. The more people you have on your team, the stronger your attacks can become, and you can even use their collective power to create weapons, like swords, guns, and giant fists. Quite how some of the more Wii U-centric ideas, like using the gamepad's second screen, will translate to the new versions is the biggest question Platinum will have to answer, but we're confident that they will find a solution. Transformers Devastation, 2015. All developers need to pay the bills, and in order to keep working on their more ambitious projects, you'll get a game like Transformers Devastation. The battle between Autobots and Decepticons proved to be a perfect fit for the developer's signature style of action, and the result is a much better game than you'd probably expect. You get to control 5 different Autobots at various times throughout the campaign, and each has their own special move and the ability to slow down time by dodging, just like Bayonetta. To anyone who grew up watching the cartoons, the presentation is a feast of nostalgia, especially as many of the voice actors returned as well. As is the fate of many licensed properties, it has since been removed from all digital stores when that license expired, but fortunately there are plenty of second-hand physical copies around if you want to play it. Star Fox Guard 2016. It may have been released as a companion piece to Star Fox Zero, also developed jointly by Nintendo and Platinum, but Star Fox Guard is a great little tower defense game in its own right that makes great use of the Wii U gamepad. Your aim is to protect a central tower from an oncoming attack, and you have to keep an eye on 12 separate security cameras to know where the danger is coming from. The gamepad displays the map, which allows the player to switch between cameras and take out the enemies. Early levels do a good job of teaching the basics, and there are more than enough new robot types and levels to keep you busy for hours. If you bought the special edition of Star Fox Zero, this game came bundled with it, but it's still available to download today on the eShop for a very respectable £13 if you didn't. There's even a demo, so there's no excuse for not trying it. Moving on to some brand new games now, with this week's reviews. Our first impression of Ash of God's Redemption was, oh, the guys behind Banner Saga have done another game. But as it turns out, Stoic Studio had nothing to do with it. Developer Aurum Dust does however cite them as an inspiration. The story can only be described as heavy, with everyone trying to survive the reaping in an already unfair world. Every character has a story, with some much more interesting than others, but it makes the strategy of the fighting system far more essential, knowing that a wrong move can mean death to anyone, no matter how important you think they are to the story. Though turn-based strategy combat is familiar, it is unfortunate that it doesn't match the deeply developed narrative. Using a mouse and keyboard would be a more preferable control method compared to the joypad, as the game was clearly developed for a PC. This, however, doesn't distract from the enjoyment, and it would be a welcome addition to any strategy games library. The roguelike twin-stick shooter is fast becoming an overcrowded genre, so games have to be really something special in order to stand out. Nomnom Apocalypse attempts to make itself memorable with a cute cartoon style and an army of food-based enemies, but sadly that description can also be applied to last year's Juicy Realm, which is a much better game than this one. There's nothing especially wrong with how the game looks or plays. The cartoon visuals are nicely designed and there are some genuinely amusing enemy types, especially the bosses. The problem is that it doesn't do anything new with the genre, and consequently feels like a game we've played dozens of times before. Local co-op play is just about worth playing in short bursts, but it just left us wishing we were playing Enter the Gungeon or Nuclear Throne instead. Now we round out this week's show with our regular look at the games that were released 10 years ago. In a packed week, featuring the arrival of Heavy Rain on PS3 and a new Silent Hill game for the Wii, the game we ended up playing the most was Sonic and Sega AllStars Racing from Sumo Digital. Using the experience gathered from making Sega Superstars Tennis and Outrun 2, the Sheffield-based developer managed to deliver the Sonic racing game that fans had been crying out for years. There's an incredible level of fan service, with characters, sounds and locations appearing from all manner of other Sega games, but that would all be for nothing if the game didn't play as well as it does. Anybody can learn how to drift around the corners, but there's a lot more depth to the gameplay that will ensure you keep coming back. If you manage to get 3 stars on every one of the game's single-player missions, then you'll be just about ready to take the racing online. The sequel, released 2 years later, was even better. It's just a shame that the developer dropped the ball with last year's Team Sonic Racing. A full gameplay clip of this game will be on our channel soon. Keep an eye out for it. That brings this week's show to an end. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe if you did. If you're a fan of Platinum games, tell us about your favourite moments from them in the comments. We'll be back next week, where hopefully we'll have reviews of Lair of the Clockwork God, Thief Simulator and Space Channel 5 VR. Follow us on social media at UK Gaming Network if you want to keep up with what we're currently playing and talking about. Until next time, thanks for watching, see you soon.